what is the best way to address performance issues?
So one is we've got a lot of reinforcement positive mechanisms in place for those A plans. So we have an entire career framework. And then we've got a lot of different monthly metrics that as they hit them, they get, bonuses that now come in their paycheck. And so, if you are more productive then and you're maintaining high customer satisfaction, then you're going to get extra bonuses and incentives. If you're not having happy customers and being productive, you can't necessarily move up to the next tier.
Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Today's guest is Will Slappey, Chief Executive Officer of IT Voice. Will shares how he grew his company from one location in 2019 to 15 locations across the nation today. And remember, if you enjoy content like this, be sure to subscribe, like, and share. Now, here's your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kayla. Over to you, Sunny.
Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sunny. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you. We have been trying to get you on this show from a while. I know our journey started. We were at one of the Kaseya conferences. I think that's where I met you for the first time.
Yeah.
And since then, we have been communicating. That this is a kind of first of a real collaboration opportunity to share what we know with the world. So thank you for being here.
Great to be here.
Okay, so I want to start with your entrepreneurial journey. Can you please share how did you get into MSPs? How you decided in terms of scaling the way you're scaling? Now you're becoming nationwide, one of the biggest MSP in America. So share your journey.
Yeah, well, I could obviously spend a lot of time on that. I'll try to keep that part short. The short story, Sonny, is my father had a telephone company growing up. He started back in the 80s. And so even as early as the age of 5, I was involved in the company. He'd take me to the office, sweeping the warehouse floors, refilling the Coke machine, filing things away. We used to have those big 3-ring binders and filing things away in them. Later running cable, at customer sites, cleaning up phones. It was really, really blessed to have a father who let me be involved in the business and who had a business and had all of those opportunities to get going. So, grew up through high school and college, working in and around the company part-time was always a great way to make extra money to do the things you want to do in those years. Next thing, I'd taken over operations and then taken over sales and then taken over running all the day-to-day operations in about 2015 time period, and then officially became the CEO. And so it's like, hey, we want to take that, to the next level. And, for myself, just to be able to continue to grow. And I always love a good challenge, Sonny. Always love a good challenge to be able to do the next thing. And so we went down that path and we started the acquisition journey. In the last 4 years, we've done 18 acquisitions and went from one location with about, 35 employees to now 14 locations with about 225. We bridged all those companies together to become one and to be able to offer that really turnkey service for our customers, right? It was like, hey, you can come to us. We can do it all for you, wrap our arms around it, be that outsourced IT to be able to handle it for you. Everything from the internet to the phones to all the IT, everything in the cloud, turnkey for our customers. So that's the really short version on where we are.
Yeah, no, that's awesome journey. So as a CEO, a hyper growth company, scaling this way, what are your top 3 challenges?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple of things that would come to mind. First is always retaining top talent, right? And keeping the talent that you have, and keeping them motivated and giving them the challenge that they need, that career advancement that they need. In all of the 18 acquisitions we've done, Sonny, when I'm looking at it even just from an industry perspective, very few of those companies actually had a sales team or even any salespeople other than the owners themselves. So I think from an industry perspective, there's a really big challenge in our industry to be able to, branch sales outside of that, principal, owner or owners in a company. So I think that's a really, really big challenge that many of the MSPs have. And of course, you've got, some of that into the operations side. Accounting seems to be pretty easy for us. There's, I think by nature, accountants love stability. And so, we've not had, any turnover in the accounting and been able to pull, new people in. But, some of that certainly in the operations realm, and then the sales side is where I think the biggest challenge there.
Yeah, so let's talk about talent a little bit more, because that's a common challenge when I talk to channel leaders, companies especially that are scaling really fast and they have like a lot going on with their organic growth and M&A growth. So when you talk about top talent retention, before we go to retention, let's start with the hiring. What are some of the like strategies or best practices that you believe in you use to attract top talent?
Well, I don't know that I can avoid not going into the retention piece first.
Okay. So we can start there.
One of the top strategies to answer your question is we really focus a lot on the culture of the company and wanting IT Voice to be a great place for people to work. When people enjoy working here, I mean, some of the best talent that we've had come in, Sonny, our own employees telling people that they know, hey, this is a great place to work. I mean, I think within like the past 18 months, I think at least 10, maybe 20 employees that we've hired have come from referrals. And you only get referrals when the existing people that you already have think that it's a great place to work and willing to tell somebody else, hey, you need to come over here and join us. Hiring is always a crapshoot, right? I mean, we all know that. I mean, you get somebody off of a job board or whatever, and they sound great and wonderful. You sound great and wonderful to them. And it's kind of like dating, and, you hit things off well, and then, but the referrals is a great kind of cheat to that whole system, because you got an employee internally that can tell them this is what it's really like to work here. So they come in without the rose-colored glasses on, and hey, they know that this is the right fit for them, hopefully. And you got somebody that's within our organization that's saying, hey, this person would be a good fit. I've worked with them before. I know how they operate, what the work ethic is, et cetera. So it really becomes a, kind of a hack, if you will, and to be able to get somebody. And we've had, I'd have to go look at the numbers. I think we're probably 100% retention on all of those referral hires that have come in.
Wow. That's a very impressive number. So let's get a little bit deeper into retention. And you mentioned culture. So what are you doing in terms of keeping your culture strong?
The number one thing that we do is just make it a priority. I think when I talk to some companies, maybe they have a retreat, they spend some time, they come up with some core values, they throw them on their website or put them on, on a sheet on the wall. It's nice, but then they don't really necessarily spend the time on it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to really reinforce those things. I'm sure you've heard, you got to tell a customer, you got to touch them 7 times before they know who you are. What the number is not important. What's important is you got to repeat things multiple times for it to stick and for people to remember it. And I think sometimes as leaders, we get it all outlined, we present it, do a really great presentation on it, and then we think everybody's going to get it, and they don't. We don't get it. We don't get things the first time that we're told things. We have a methodical process on a weekly basis or a monthly basis in terms of how we are promoting the culture. And so we recognize people based upon our culture. We have a weekly meeting that's about 8 to 10 minutes where it's basically like a cultural pep rally. The other day, there was a customer problem that came up and it could have fell between the cracks, but you know what? Sonny demonstrated what our core value of owning it looks like. He grabbed the bull by the horns. He got 2 other people together and he makes sure that customer got solved. And really appreciate you, Sonny, for doing that. And that's a great example for all of us of what it looks like to own it. So love to tell stories that demonstrate our culture and simultaneously recognize people for doing that. I see an anniversary card, birthday card to all of our people, little handwritten card with a, with the Amazon gift card in it that just says, hey, happy birthday, treat yourself to something or happy anniversary. Thanks for being with us for 1 year or 35 years, whatever it may be. Those kind of things that, treating people like people and that are important and recognizing, their contribution to the team. Those extra elements where people feel like, hey, I matter, I can make a difference. And so as we're engaging with the employees, really putting ourselves in the shoes of each employee. And so like, okay, if I'm this person in our Wyoming office or this person in our Wisconsin office or this person in our California office, maybe they're new to the team, maybe they've been here for 30 years, wherever it might be. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's important to them? What are their questions that are coming to mind? And is how we're communicating and how we're talking about our vision, how we're talking about our objectives and our goals. Like, how did they hear that? And then how do we make sure that we're continuing to articulate it in such a way that helps every person in the company understand, here's what I need to do. Here's how I fit in. Here's how I help accomplish the goal. It's really just simply treating other people the way you would want to be treated, and putting yourself in their shoes and being like, okay, if I was in their shoes, try to imagine what that would be like. And then, okay, let me try to figure out how to best connect with them so that they know how to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, the other side of that is, the performance side. So we also want to make sure that while our culture is very strong, and at the same time, performance is so strong in terms of client experience. So how do you handle performance issues, or what do you share with your managers, with your leaders? What is the best way to address performance issues so that you don't end up with a lot of C players where they impact your A players?
Yeah, so a couple of different ways to do that. So one is we've got a lot of reinforcement positive mechanisms in place for those A players. I think the biggest challenge when the A players start to look at the C players and getting discontented is when everybody kind of has the same privilege or same pay or whatever, from one to the other. And like, I'm busting my butt and this person's not, but yet we're kind of being treated the same. So we have an entire career framework. I'm at a tier 1. How do I get to a tier 2? What are the certifications I need to do? What are the problems I need to be able to, like, what are those competencies that I need to have? So we had that whole outline that they go through with their manager to be able to understand how do they grow. And then we've got a lot of different monthly metrics that as they hit them, they get, bonuses that now come in their paycheck that they get for hitting those. And basically our metrics kind of are into two major categories: customer satisfaction, and then what you talk about in terms of the performance, And so, if you are more productive and you're maintaining high customer satisfaction, then you're going to get extra bonuses and incentives. If you're not having happy customers and being productive, like, you can't necessarily move up to the next tier. And I think, for us, our general strategy is like, okay, how do we make sure that the A players still set apart and they see their path to grow? How do we get the B players into A players? Because a lot of times that can happen. And on the C players, sometimes you can move them up. That's a little bit more rare. But sometimes you can't be able to move them up, or they find their own way to C player company.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. But one question that comes to me from the talent point of view, especially when you're acquiring companies, you're acquiring their culture as well. So people have their own kind of, like they are working that way from years. So is there anything that you do to make sure that they get smoothly integrated into your culture?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we have done to try to help with that, and you're exactly right. There is a challenge there. Now, on the acquisitions, we've done a pretty good job on making sure that culture that they have is similar to ours. So just like hiring, a new employee, where you want to make sure they fit your culture, when you're doing an acquisition, you want to make sure that they fit your culture as well. So a lot of it goes into some of the things I've already said. I mean, I always go on site to, within like the first 24 to 48 hours. On every acquisition that we've done, I want to meet every single new employee, shake their hand, look them in the eye. I'll do an intro presentation and share about who we are, what our game plans are, and be straight up and honest with people. In a smaller type of MSP, I mean, most of your MSPs, are like 5 to 20 employees. That's where most all of them live. And so in a company that size, a lot of people reach that cap. There's limited opportunities sometimes for growth in some of those companies. And so it's cool to see as they become a part of us, where now they begin to grow to the next level. They start to get to P&L responsibility and owning a location, or some of the people, begin to help us across the whole country, like marketing people, help us across the whole company. We got people who are helping us with, our managed services team or other central types of teams that, now they begin to grow in a different sort of way. Or some people are like, I would just like to do something different. I want a different challenge. So maybe more of a lateral move, but they get to make that move and continue to help a lot of the same customers and interact with the same employees. So there's a big plus side to the employees, as well as all of a sudden they get to stay inside of that entity, if you will, that they were a part of, and those customers and that team, but also have some uplifted opportunity that they didn't have the day before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you let them keep good things from their like a existing company.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the state of the channel. So you have been acquiring a lot of companies, you know where things are, where things are going. So what's your sense when it comes to 2023 from M&A perspective?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly when it started heavily. It's probably about anywhere from 5 to 10 years ago. And it's really heated up like the past 2 to 3 years. The channel is consolidating. And I think that there's two main drivers that I see to what's causing the consolidation. One is just the retirement age of a lot of the founders, right? You got founders who founded their business, 20 to 30 years ago, and maybe a little bit of burnout. Maybe they're just getting to that age. They've made enough money, but they're ready to be able to take a step back, right? And move into some sort of retirement. And so when they retire, unless they have somebody inside of the company that wants to buy it from them, which a lot of times is not an option. Sometimes there is, and that's great. So now, hey, they're going outside to be able to find that option to cash in on the great asset that they built over the decades. So you got that's pushing on one side, and then on the other side, you've got a mix of I'm just going to generically kind of call it economies of scale. When you can create one process and now you can do it across, for us, 14 different locations, then you can get a lot more bang for your buck. Whether that be sales, marketing, operations processes, some of the central teams. There's some economies of scale that you get, and economies of scale ultimately produce, a better bottom line. So getting back to your question in 2023, ultimately what I see is that we're going to continue on that same trend. There is some easing off in terms of the pressure. So we probably hit the peak of the multiples from my perspective in Q4 of 2021. And then they slacked off through 2022, part of why we were able to do so many acquisitions. I think 2023 is probably going to stay pretty on par with what we saw in 2022. But that being said, on the private equity side, which is what's driving a huge chunk of all of the consolidation and acquisition, it's not always exactly tied to the economy, because a lot of times when the economy is bad, people are looking for alternate places to put their money, and putting into a recurring model inside of the technology space. It is a very appealing space to be. So even with the economy maybe not being as good, I think overall we'll probably see pretty consistent in 2023 to what we saw in 2022 with those same sort of factors driving and pushing it. Basically 3 different options. Either position yourself to survive on your own, and you got to figure out how do you solve those economies of scale by yourself, and maybe that's through enough growth or some strategic partnerships or whatnot. Position yourself to be acquired, right? What do you need to do? So, hey, if you want to exit in the next few years, what do you need to do? Or position yourself to acquire.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any last thought before we close?
When I look at, and I kind of mentioned this, all of the acquisitions that we've done, and so many of them did not have a sales team at all. That's a huge challenge for our average, MSP that's out there. What I see is that for us, over the years, about only 1 in 3 salespeople that we hire actually pans out. It takes a lot of time, energy, and money to make it happen. And so, if somebody's out there wanting to grow, then, investing in that, and kind of if you lower your expectations and realize hey, I probably need to hire 5 to 6 salespeople, and then I'm going to get one really good one, and maybe a second or third one that's good and decent that can survive, and there's going to be a certain number of them that's not going to work out at all. Kind of going with that expectation, and then having a really good process to bring those people on, train them, and create a standard sales process that's scalable and that you can duplicate. Because some of the MSPs is the owner that's selling, and they're kind of winging as they're going. They don't really have a duplicatable process. So I think that's one of those challenges that's in the industry that is really hard to conquer. And I don't think a lot of MSPs put enough attention on it, enough time, energy, and money like they do on the other parts of their business. So that would be the one other kind of tip or tidbit that's out there. Maybe somebody's listening that would say, yeah, no, I tried to hire one. Okay. Yeah, it didn't work out. That's okay. I need to try again. And eventually you will strike gold, and then that'll be huge for you.
Thank you so much, Will, for coming to Sunny's Silver Linings. I appreciate you, and thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom, your very valuable insights with the world. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me, Sunny. Appreciate you inviting me. have enjoyed the friendship we've built over the last few years. So great to be here today.
Thank you for watching Sunny's Silver Linings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.